Hello and welcome to Living Better for Longer, a Bournemouth University event. My name is Emma and I'll be your host for this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Tonight we'll be exploring some of Bournemouth University's research into healthy ageing and looking at the ways in which we're helping people to live better, healthier lives for longer and age well. Here's what we've got coming up. We'll have 3 15-minute presentations. The first looking at eating well in later life, then Tai Chi for people with dementia, and staying active and independent for longer. In between, we'll have a short break, which will also feature an optional Tai Chi session that will be run by a qualified instructor. At the end of tonight's event, we'll have around 20 minutes for questions and discussion with all of our speakers before finishing at around 8:30 p.m. Tonight is the first in our online public lecture series, showcasing Bournemouth University research and the difference that it's making in the world. To explain more, here's our Vice-Chancellor, Professor John Vinney.
Thank you for joining us for this evening's public lecture, which highlights research brilliance at Bournemouth University. The lecture series covers many of our areas of academic strength, from healthy ageing to protecting the environment, championing culture and heritage, challenging marginalisation, managing crisis and disaster, and helping to support Dorset's economy. We're very proud of all the work that we do at the university and the impact that it has on the world. And I hope that this evening's lecture really provides you with a new insight into the work that we're doing to change the world and make it a better place.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the Crowdcast platform that we're using tonight, there's a few features to be aware of. Firstly, we're not going to be able to see or hear you, only our speakers will be on camera and using their microphones. So there's a couple of ways you can interact with us. Firstly, it's great to see so many of you already using the chat box on the right-hand side to say hello and introduce yourselves. This is the main way that you can interact with each other and with our speakers to share any thoughts, feedback or comments throughout the event. You'll also see we have the Ask a Question button at the bottom right of the screen. This is where you can post your questions that you want the speakers to answer in our discussion at the end of the event. You're also able to vote on other people's questions. So if there's a question in there that you'd particularly like answering, click on the little arrow to the left-hand side to upvote it, and we'll address the most popular questions in our discussion at the end. Our speakers may also have some questions for you, so they'll be launching polls throughout their presentations. These will pop up on the bottom of your screen as multiple choice questions that you can answer anonymously, so please don't be worried about saying the right or wrong thing. Get involved, we really want to hear from you. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speakers this evening, Professor Jane Murphy and Dr. Sophia Amenyah. Over to you, Jane and Sophia.
Thank you very much, Emma, and it's always sort of great to be first. Thank you to everyone who's joining us tonight. So yes, I'm Jane Murphy. I'm Professor of Nutrition. I'm a registered nutritionist and a registered dietitian, and I co-lead the Ageing and Dementia Research Centre at Bournemouth University. And Sophia's joining me tonight. So do you want to introduce yourself, Sophia?
Hi, everyone.
You're right, Sophia. Have you lost sound?
Yes.
Shall I introduce you? So Sophia is a great colleague of mine, Dr. Sophia Amenyah. She's a postdoctoral research fellow. She's also a registered nutritionist and works within the Ageing and Dementia Research Centre here at Bournemouth University. Are you right now, Sophia? Or shall I crack on?
Yes.
Okay, I'll sort of crack on. So really first of all, what we'd like to do is to start by focusing upon eating well in later life and what that means in relation to health as we age. And what Sophia and I wanted to do was also to share some of our research with you. So hopefully we'll be able just to show a few slides and bring up the poll. I think there may be just a few technical issues here, but maybe while we're waiting, do you want to just pop into the chat box whether you think you're eating well at the moment? That's certainly something we're going to be talking about. So just put your thoughts and ideas in the chat, whether you think you're eating well. Maybe you can use emojis, put your sort of hands up, or otherwise. Brilliant. There's the slides. Brilliant. Excellent. So there's the sort of first slide. Shall we move on to the poll, Sophia? There we go. So yeah, first of all, what we'd like to do is to do a poll, and to think a bit more about eating well. So as Emma kindly introduced to you, there is a button at the bottom of the screen, which you can click, and then you will see 5 options. And really the question we're asking is, do you think that you're eating well? And to answer each of those options. So the first option is no, definitely not, probably not, possibly, probably yes, and yes, very well. How are we doing? Oh, we've got some really interesting responses in the chat as well. Too much, not enough. Brilliant. There was still a little bit of movement on the poll. That's really interesting, Sophia, isn't it? I think it's yes, probably.
Yes. Seems like a lot of people are eating their veggies, but there's some notice in there.
Yeah, maybe not. But thank you very much for your honesty. Anyway, well, let's sort of like crack on.
So that was some very interesting responses to the poll, and it's really nice to see what people are eating, or whether people think they are eating well or not. But I was wondering, Jane, can you tell us why nutrition is important as we grow older?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today, and certainly a focus of my my interests and my research interests over the last sort of 10 or 20 years. But nutrition is really fundamental to good health, and really plays an important role in preventing disease. And I see someone in the chat already has asked about the chances of reducing dementia, because we're more likely to develop, diseases like dementia, cardiovascular disease, cancer as we age. And nutrition, what we're eating and drinking, does play an integral role in the onset and also the development and their progression. As I'm sure a lot of you sort of recognise, we're living in an ageing society. We're living for longer, but does that always mean quality of life years? And nutrition certainly has an important role to play in that as we age. So are we getting things right? Some of you are, maybe sort of some of you aren't getting the balance right. And what you can see there on the slide is, what counts as old. You've got some lovely pictures of sort of different people doing sort of different things. But there may come a time when things change. Maybe you do have an illness, a short-term and even a long-term illness. Maybe your social circumstances change that affects your eating and drinking. And that's really, really important. As we've seen over the last couple of years during lockdown, during pandemic, the impact of living alone, shielding, living in isolation has been massive, affecting people's appetites, affecting access to food as well. So what should we do in response? We recognise that we have some issues. And on this slide here, I've highlighted a fantastic document, a very short booklet, called Eating Well in Later Life. It's freely available and published by the Malnutrition Task Force. If you go onto their website, you can access it, and you can even get hold of a hard copy should you wish. And hopefully Sophia or members of the team will sort of put the link in the chat for you, so you can access that, or we can put that in the chat at the end. But it's a really good leaflet which highlights what older people or things we should be doing in later life.
That's really great to know, Jane. So what does eating for health look like, and how does it change as we grow older?
And that's a really, really good question. As we age, things, as I said already, things may change. But for most of our, adult life, we're trying to stay healthy, preventing illnesses, and being encouraged certainly by our own sort of UK government to eat well. And what does eating well look like? Well, eating a very balanced, varied diet, trying to reduce the amount of fat, salt, sugar, high fibre, all these sort of key health messages, trying to eat at least 5 portions of fruit a day, and trying to limit the alcohol we're drinking as well. But there may come a time within our sort of, latter years where maybe sort of things change for some of the reasons I've outlined already, due to illness, due to some changes in our social circumstances. And we may need to eat differently, perhaps differently from what we've been doing for most of our lives. We might need to eat more calories, more fat, and certainly eat more protein. And that's something that a lot of older people really need to sort of focus on, not eating enough protein to maintain their muscle function and mass. But also importantly, that older people are eating enough vitamins and minerals as well, and also keeping well hydrated as well. Really, really important for all of us, but also for people as they age. And then sort of moving on, if we're not able to sort of manage our diet by these sort of changes, it may be we need to sort of do further things, such as choosing foods that are even more nutrient dense, with more calories, more protein, more fat. Thinking about how we can fortify food to add more calories, add more protein, add more vitamins and minerals as well. And also thinking about hydration. Again, really important that we do drink enough. And when I'm talking about drinking, not alcohol, it's important that we do limit the amount of alcohol we drink, but it's the fluid. Tea, coffee does count, and aiming for around 6 to 8 mugs and glasses each day.
Wow, that's really insightful, Jane. I didn't think that when you are growing older, you have to start eating all the things that maybe perhaps you were told in the past to not eat. So that's very interesting to know. But in Ghana, where I come from, there's the perception that as we grow older, we lose weight. Is this true? And what are the signs as we grow older? And how would an older person know that they are losing weight? And what can they do about it?
Really interesting to know, obviously, what's happening in your sort of home country, Sophia, and that's certainly the case here. We really shouldn't assume, and it's a myth that losing weight is not an inevitable part of aging. We shouldn't assume that we lose weight, and obviously the type of weight is important as well. And it's important that we try and spot the signs of unplanned weight loss, unintentional weight loss. And sometimes that might be sort of difficult to spot on ourselves, and maybe a family, our loved one or a friend may be able to sort of, spot those signs better for us. But there may be, apart from weight loss, there may be other signs, such as our clothes becoming looser, or rings and jewelry becoming looser as well. We may lose interest in our food, lose interest in going out, doing activities, those sort of routine things. We may, become more withdrawn. We may sort of develop some physical signs as well, such as, pressure sores, or wounds might not heal so well. Another key sign is developing more urinary tract infections, as well, and we know certainly that's linked to not drinking enough, and puts the person at risk of having falls as well, poor concentration as well. So lots of signs and symptoms of that. And certainly it's all very well, saying this. Well, what tools are out there to sort of guide people? And again, if I may sort of signpost you to the Malnutrition sort of Task Force website, again, there's a fantastic resource, and 2 sort of key tools there I'd like to share with you: the Patients Association Nutrition sort of checklist and the Nutrition Wheel, which really are great tools and helps people to have a conversation about nutrition through 4 key questions, and to really sort of pick up some of those early signs, and be able to sort of signpost people to appropriate resources as well, because obviously there's a lot of information on the internet as well, which I think we're going to sort of look at now, aren't we, Sophia?
Yes, thank you so much, Jane, and thanks for signposting us to those very helpful resources. And you all agree with me that there's so much information about what to eat, what not to eat, which foods are good for us, which foods are not so good for us, and so on. So we want to find out from you, where do you get your trusted dietary or nutrition advice? And that will be our next poll. So if we can just go to the bottom of the screen and click on poll, and you can vote on the options there. If there are some options that are not on the poll, you can just drop them in the chat. And of all the options we have, which ones do you think are more influential?
Well, some really interesting things coming up, Sophia. I think the NHS website, I think, is going to be a clear winner here. What do you think? I thought there might be sort of more for the going to the GP. That's quite surprising. And of course, the internet is a helpful resource, but of course there is a lot of misinformation on there as well. And I think it's really sort of tricky for people to know where to find trusted information on the internet. But it's great that people are going to the NHS website, which is certainly a place I would certainly start with.
Oh.
Brilliant.
Very nice. Thank you all so much. And now we want to share a couple of our new research projects that feature old people where nutrition is important alongside other lifestyle factors such as physical activity and social engagement. So Jane, do you want to tell us about your project?
Thank you very much, Sophia. So yeah, as this sort of slide nicely shows, this is a really exciting project that I'm really looking forward to sort of starting at the beginning of April, hopefully. So this is the Donor Project. It's a digital health coaching project for people with frailty, based in Wessex. And I apologise for people on the call that aren't sort of based, within our region. But frailty is a condition that affects 1 in 10 older people. It means that people are at high risk of having a fall, disability, and poorer quality of life. And what we want to do through this project is to develop some new sort of technology, and more people are using technology as a result of obviously how they've used it during the pandemic. But appreciate that's not everybody, but hopefully through this new work will help to support people better to live well and enable them to receive person-centered advice and care. So what we're going to do is to work with older people themselves across Wessex, and also with practitioners that work with older people, and to explore whether this new digital approach, working alongside a health coach, a real person, a care navigator or a social prescriber, can help lifestyle management around activity, around diet, around sort of changing sort of circumstances, and really help prevent frailty, getting worse, prevent that decline, and hopefully reverse it as well. And hopefully we can put a link to the website in the chat as well, if not now, sort of later on, to sort of highlight a bit more about this. So really exciting project, and funded by NIHR, National Institute of Health Research as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that. But Sophia, tell us about your exciting project as well, because I know you're going to be starting a really exciting project in community, aren't you, with older people?
Yes, I am, Jane. And this project is one that is really special to me because I have a lot of older people in my family. So it's a really great opportunity to do research that is very meaningful. And for our project, we are going to explore how community-based food activities impact on the health and well-being and social connectedness of older people. So for the projects, we all know that food is really important to our identity. I know that whenever I feel homesick in the UK and I have my jollof rice and chicken, it really makes me feel at home. So we are going to co-create with our older people and their community activities around growing food, cooking together, meal sharing, and we will include foods that are culturally diverse, and then create a socially inclusive environment with our participants. This project is funded by the Dunhill Medical Trust, and we are going to carry it out in collaboration with United St. Saviour's Charity. So it's a really, really exciting project, and I'm looking forward to it. And if you want to know more about this research, you can follow up on our website. So just want to say a really big thank you to all of you for joining us for this session. We really enjoyed interacting with you, and we look forward to answering your questions at the end of the other presentations. But do remember to get in touch with us either via our website or social media. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks too. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Jane and Sophia, for that really interesting presentation. It's certainly given me some food for thought, if you'll excuse the fun.
I've read that before, Emma, at all.
Right, we'll move on to our next speaker now, who's Dr. Samuel Nyman. Following Samuel's talk, we'll have a 15-minute break, during which time you're welcome to get up, stretch your legs, go and grab a drink, pop to the loo, do whatever you need to do. Or you can join in with our optional Tai Chi demonstration, which will be led live by a qualified instructor. So Samuel will have more details about that towards the end of his talk, but for now it's over to Samuel. Sorry, Samuel's not quite ready yet. So I was just going to say, it's been great to see so many of you responding in the chat, responding to our polls, asking questions. As I said at the beginning of the event, we will be having a discussion with all of our speakers at the end of the event. So do keep your questions coming for that section, and we'll be addressing them later on. But it's really brilliant to see so many of you chatting. And oh, here's Samuel. Welcome. I'll hand over to you now.
Right. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. And hello, welcome. I'm Samuel Nyman. And I'm going to talk to you about a project about Tai Chi for people with dementia. And this has been quite a very interesting project for me. I've been interested in working with older people for quite a long time now. My background is in health psychology, so I'm very interested in behavior change and how we can encourage people to be more physically active, and particularly with older people, how it can help to prevent falls. And that's something I've been interested in for some time. And obviously, over the last number of years, I've also been working specifically with people with dementia as well. And I got talking with a Tai Chi instructor, and he was telling me his anecdotal evidence about how he was working with people with dementia in care homes, and about how it was working really well, and they were learning the moves, and they were really enjoying it. And I just thought, oh, this is obviously really good, but we need to do some research and really get some evidence behind it, because unfortunately, people with dementia have been excluded from a lot of the trials looking to demonstrate the evidence for how we can best prevent falls among older people. So what I want to do is, before I get into that, I want to start off by putting a poll question to you. So you've obviously had some good practice with this already with Jane and Sophia's presentation earlier. So a poll will pop up in the bottom right hand of the screen for you. And just wanted to ask, just get a sense from in the room what experience we have of dementia at the moment. And obviously during the presentation, feel free to write questions and add comments and flesh out some of these responses as we go. And we'll have more time to pick up on them in detail in the question and answer. But I can see the votes are flooding in, and it's a bit of a mix from what I can see so far in terms of experience we've got. It's yeah, we've got a few people that have heard of it, and then there's some with a distant friend or relative, and then quite a lot more. Someone close to them has dementia. So interesting. Right. Thank you for that. So quite a mix. For those who are less familiar with dementia, just wanted to start by just upfront saying dementia is an umbrella term used for a collection of diseases of the brain that are progressive and terminal in nature. So you may be familiar with the term Alzheimer's. You may have heard of Alzheimer's disease, Alzheimer's Society, Alzheimer's Association in the US. These are not interchangeable. The term dementia is really, think of it as an umbrella term where there's quite a few different types of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most frequent one, but it's one of several. And I'm afraid it is, although you can live a very long life and never get dementia, it is linked with age. So the older that you get, the more at risk you are of having dementia, I'm afraid. So certainly when you get into your 80s, 1 in 6 people over the age of 80 have dementia. I did say at the beginning I'm very interested in falls and preventing falls, and so some information about this. I'm afraid falls are quite frequent on a yearly basis. You're looking at 1 in 20 A&E patients are older people with an injury from falling. But people with dementia in particular have a much higher risk. So they actually have a double the rate of falling per year. 2 in 3 will fall every year. They're more at risk of having an injury once they have fallen. So for example, with hip fractures, they're 3 times more likely. And unfortunately, there's a poor recovery from injuries as well. And this can lead to very serious consequences. And 1 in 3 hip fracture patients actually die within a year. So that's a bit about dementia and falls. What I want to go to next is to throw another poll question at you, and we're going to get talking about Tai Chi. And I wanted to, now that we've got a bit of a sense of your previous experience on dementia, I wanted to get a bit of a feel for what experience you might have had of Tai Chi. We're going to show a short video demonstrating Tai Chi in a moment, but I thought before we do that, we'll just quickly see. Oh, this is interesting. So when I asked about dementia, most people seem to that have a lot of personal experience having someone close to them having dementia. But when it comes to Tai Chi, it's actually, no, quite a few of you have tried it. But I'd say equally, quite a lot of you have never done it before as well. So we're going to show a short video just to demonstrate what we mean by Tai Chi. Obviously, you're going to get a chance, if you've not done it before, you're going to get a chance to do it after this. But you should see a pattern. It's a really nice, slow, gentle, fluid movements of the body. So it is a very gentle form of exercise. And you can see you're very slowly transferring all the body weight from one leg to the other. And yeah, so you are doing exercise, you are building your muscle strength in your legs, you are helping with your balance and coordination, but it's also mindful. They call it a mind body exercise. So it's really relaxing and you're focusing on the here and now and doing the movements. So some refer to it as a moving meditation. So it has those kind of mindfulness benefits. Thanks for the video, and we are going to come back to the slides. Thank you for that. Yeah, so that will hopefully give you a bit of a glimpse into Tai Chi, but as I say, you're going to have a chance to do it in a moment. But really accessible form of exercise, which is really, one of the main reasons why I was so interested in this for people with dementia, because it really is something that anyone can do, regardless of their abilities. So what did we do in the study that I did? So this is for people with dementia, and we got them into a study. They volunteered as a pair, so they came with usually as a husband and wife, spouse, but not exclusively, but the vast majority, it was a carer. So not a paid carer, it was someone that was very close to them So usually a spouse. And so we took part as pairs, and we did what we call a randomized controlled trial. So we hit a button in the computer and we randomized. And we had one group, which we called a control group, and they just carried on as usual. They carried on with their usual routines, the medication they take, etc., etc. They did that for 5 months, and then we had a second group, what we call the intervention group, where we gave them the chance to do Tai Chi, and we had an instructor, and we invited them to come to a class once a week and to practice Tai Chi in a class with other people with dementia and the carers. And we asked them to practice at home in between the classes as well, over 5 months. And on average, they did around about 24 hours of Tai Chi each. And so we did some assessments with them at the beginning, and then we did some assessments with them again at the end, 6 months later. And I was really interested in what benefits we might find. I was really interested in balance and also in falls. So we very closely monitored if any of them had a fall during that period of time. We were phoning them every week and doing calendars. And anyway, we did all these assessments. So we had some mixed findings. Some of the measures around balance didn't show any difference, but I'm going to pull out the main sort of key messages we got from the study was that when we looked at the falls, we actually saw quite a very strong signal here from the study that Tai Chi was reducing the number of falls in the group that was doing Tai Chi. And also that the quality of life scores on these questionnaires we gave was much better in the Tai Chi group as well. So this will have to be repeated in a much larger study with a much larger number of people. But this is really promising results for helping to reduce falls and improve quality of life. We also did some interviews with people along the way, and we got some quotes for you here. So this is from a family carer talking about her mother. She said, "I think the more you go to the classes, the more you learn. So the easier it becomes. Mum's obviously got mobility and memory issues, and each week as we get into the class, she kind of gets to move a bit quicker than the week before." And we had these quotes like this that show that people with dementia were able to learn how to do Tai Chi. And also it was entirely safe as well. There was no incidents in any of the classes or any of the home practice. So really a reassurance for anyone concerned about whether people with dementia could learn to do this, or, would it be safe? And some really nice comments about how much they enjoyed it as well. So they really enjoyed the Tai Chi itself, but also the meeting up in the classes and seeing other people. And so this is from a person with dementia saying how thoroughly enjoyed doing the exercises. They enjoy going. We have a bit of a laugh over things. It's just quite a jolly place to be, which is really nice. That it was a research project that they really enjoyed doing. So just to summarize, what we found really in this study was that people with dementia are able to learn to do Tai Chi, that there's no safety concerns. We also looked at things like burden on the carers, and we got reassurance that we were not burdening the carers by asking them to come with them to the classes every week and to facilitate the home practice. And again, it would have to be repeated in a much larger study to say for certain, but we had some really promising results for how Tai Chi can help reduce falls among people with dementia and to help with their quality of life, which is really great, because there really has been hardly any research at all with people with dementia in terms of preventing falls, and certainly none before this study using Tai Chi. In this last slide here, I just wanted to acknowledge that it wasn't just me. I was the chief investigator for the trial, but there was a large team behind this. We had the Tai Chi instructor from Elemental Tai Chi, we had a clinical trials unit from Plymouth, and colleagues from several different corners helping to recruit into the study, and of course the National Institute for Health Research that funded the study. And of course my views don't represent any of the organizations here. So I hope you found that interesting, and I'd be really interested to discuss this more in the Q&A. So do add questions and comments if you haven't already, and we can pick those up later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce Michael Acton for you. So as Emma mentioned, we're going into a break now. So you can decide to do one of two things. You can just have a break and stand up, stretch your legs, grab a coffee or whatever. But for those of you that would like to, there is an opportunity now for you to do a taster session, 15 minutes of Tai Chi with Michael Acton. So Michael is chair and founder and senior instructor of Wuxi, Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong Association. And he's going to demonstrate some Tai Chi. Some of it will be standing and some of it will be seated. But if you want to be seated throughout the entire session, then obviously please do that. So the usual kind of disclaimer here is that obviously Tai Chi, as I've mentioned, is very safe and it's a very slow and gentle type of exercise. But you obviously know your body and you know your medical history, and we don't. So you will have to just obviously take part as you feel comfortable. And if you have any concerns or discomfort or anything like that, then obviously please do decide not to take part, or at least remain seated. And so obviously you're just sort of taking part at your own risk, but obviously it's a very safe and enjoyable activity. So I hope for those of you that choose to do it, that you really enjoy Michael Acton's session with you now.
Hi, Samuel. I think we're just waiting a couple of minutes for Michael to join us. But in the meantime, we've had a few specific questions for you in the chat and in questions and answers. So while we're waiting, it's a good chance to get started. Sorry to put you on the spot. Can I just ask, were the participants who had dementia had the same type of dementia and the same degree of impairment, or was there a spectrum of dementia included in both the control group and the participants?
Yes, great question. Yes, so for this study, we were looking at people on the more kind of mild to moderate severity, and we decided that because we felt that probably when it gets to the point with the kind of very kind of severe end of the spectrum, that it may be quite tricky for them to follow on. So yes, it was more the mild to moderate end. It was people living in the community, so it was not care homes. I should add that as well. And in terms of types of dementia, it was, as you might imagine, it was mainly people with Alzheimer's, vascular, mixed. We were open to the rarer types, but we did exclude people with the Lewy body and the Parkinson's type dementias. The reason we excluded those two is because those two have a rate of falls that is much higher. So if you're looking at your healthy older adult in the population, you're looking at around about 1 in 3 are going to have a fall every single year. You're looking at people with kind of Alzheimer's and that kind of thing. It's more like a double that, more like 2 in 3. And then when you're looking at the Parkinson's and Lewy bodies, it's much more sort of like 90% upwards are going to fall every year. So you'd be thinking of a different strategy with those types of dementia. You'd be thinking not preventing falls, but you'd be thinking of reducing the injuries. You'd be thinking quite a different approach. So that's why we didn't include them either.
And obviously you saw some great results in the trial. So are there any plans to continue this work or further this research?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I'm really interested to progress this, and what I'm trying to do is to get funding at the moment to keep this going. We want to make a few adjustments. One of the things was people practicing at home. We got some really good feedback from the participants, and although we got these really nice colorful booklets and we got these photos professionally made and simple descriptions of the movements, people just really found it was, even with all of that effort, it was really difficult to do the practice at home, and they really felt they wanted something visual, like a YouTube video or something like this. And so that's we need to do some little refinements like that to create some more video materials and this kind of thing. And then once we've done that, I'll be hoping to go to a much larger study where we can get a much larger number of people and get some real definitive evidence, which is what would be considered sort of gold standard evidence, which would then influence sort of practice and nice guidelines and this kind of thing.
And speaking of home dementia, home Tai Chi, sorry, I think we are still trying to get Michael on the line shortly, so do bear with us. But
Sure.
I suppose thinking about doing it at home, one of the things you found in the study that actually people really enjoyed that social aspect of it and meeting other people in the same situation as them, whether that be people with dementia or carers. So is there potentially a risk that they would lose that kind of social benefit of taking part in this activity if they were to do the exercises at home?
Yeah, it's a real trade-off in the exercise literature. So you'll have, I would say on balance, most people prefer something class-based where you've got that social aspect, and there's some psychological theory sort of behind this, where as we get older, we're much more focused on doing things with immediate benefits that we want to enjoy, and that's, it has got that social element. And so it's something that I think, and particularly we had classes just for people with dementia and their carers, and what was great about that is that they really got that kind of sense of camaraderie, that kind of bond in the group, which is great. Whereas I think for some people with dementia, when they're trying to access something which is not designed for someone with dementia and those kind of conditions, that they can sometimes feel on the fringe and they can't keep up, and then they don't really feel as included. Whereas that was great. I have noticed that Mike is with us as I was talking, so I feel I should I keep my answers short.
Carry on, Samuel.
It's good to see you, Mike.
Nice to see you as well.
I've already done a bit of an introduction to you, Mike, which you may have missed. Yeah. So rather than me repeating myself, you may wish to briefly introduce yourself before you get into the session.
Okay, I'll just say a few things about you. Is it over to me now, Samuel?
Yes, over to you, Mike.
Okay, so I'm Michael Acton, as Samuel has told you. I'm the founder of Wushu Tai Chi Chuan and Qigong Association. We're based in London. I'm a student of 2 masters in China. My Qigong master was Li Li Chun of Shanghai, and another master called Yu Ji Fa were my Tai Chi masters. They're both lineage holders of a Tai Chi system. And for the sake of what we're dealing with here, Tai Chi and Qigong really amount to the same activity, okay, because they're based upon the same principles in many ways. So that's my credential. I've been teaching over 30 years. I'm a published author. I've given lectures on it, and I've been working with Samuel in the past on some aspects of Tai Chi as an intervention for falls, fall prevention. So today I'm going to show you some very, very basic movements of therapeutic Qigong and Tai Chi. Tai Chi and Qigong are basically separated into 3 historically main sections or main areas, one of which is martial, the other of which is therapeutic, and the last one of which is spiritual. Okay, so we're dealing with the therapeutic and health provision, really, of what Tai Chi and Qigong can do for us. One of the things that's worth bearing in mind is the old name for Qigong. The movements I'm going to show you today come from the tradition of Qigong. You can call them also Tai Chi, but there is a kind of conflict of, not a conflict, but there's a slight difference, because Tai Chi originally was a martial art, but that's another story. The name I want you to remember is the name Dao Yin. Dao Yin means to guide and induce a change. And the basic principle is that by moderating or regulating certain aspects of the body and the breath and the mental awareness, you induce a change in the body. And the change in the body is the induced change is a change towards an optimized health. We're looking at a kind of systemic coherence, efficiency of respiration, and a calmness of mind. Okay, the outcome of which is all about the self-healing mechanisms of the body and promoting that and maintaining it. Qigong in Shanghai is referred to, as my book is referred to as eternal spring. And this says a lot about how Qigong in China is understood as a practice that prolongs life and prolongs good health. Okay, so that's a very important awareness to have with regards to these kind of practices. There are always three aspects to the practice of Qigong as well as Tai Chi. And those three aspects are really body work, breath work, and mind work. And it's important that all three are trained in different ways. There are a whole variety of ways of practicing them. But in the end, they all are brought together. So we've really got something that tells us about body work requires a kind of stretching and opening up of the body, and opening of the interior landscape of the body, a strengthening of the body, and movement of blood, lymphatics, and all the basic activities of our physiology. Then we have the breath work, which is really to do with a type of breathing that we did when we were children, which we call abdominal breathing, as opposed to constrictive thoracic breathing, which we tend to do as we get older, which is all located up here. So we try and locate our breath down in the lower area of our body, referred to as dantian. I'm just going to move away from the screen so you can see here. And this is a very important area for the locus of breathing, so that we sense our breathing down in this area. And then we have the aspect of the mind. And the mind really is about calming the activity of the mind, reducing the influence of external pressure on the mind and stress, and traveling internally so that we can actually start becoming aware of what goes on inside our body, and how we can manage to engage with it with our mental activity, as opposed to being distracted. We must be extremely mindful. There's a big word that's used a lot these days. Mindful of our practice and of our activity and of our breath. Okay, so Qigong must be seen as a process. It is not just learning one thing. It's about cumulative practice, and Samuel pointed this out, that people who come regularly gain more experience, gain more benefits, and gain more ease with the practice. And this is a very important aspect of practicing Qigong or Tai Chi. It must become a sort of regular practice. And then, so we have the body work, the breath work, and the mental work, and these are known as three treasures. Okay, so we always work with the three treasures. Okay, so what I'm going to do with you now is I'm going to guide you through a few movements to give you some idea of what an expression of Qigong might be. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to do this standing up primarily, because I don't think we've got time to cover all aspects of this. Qigong can become quite complex the more you look into it. But on a superficial level, we're just going to place our hands one over the other in the lower dantian area like this. This is what we call the area of dantian, or elixir field. And we have three of them. We have one here, one where the heart is located, and one in the middle of the head, on the midline that goes from the top to the bottom. Okay. So we're going to stand with our feet parallel in a natural standing posture, nothing exceptional in the stand. We just stand up, feel comfortable, feel balanced. And then we put our hands here. And then we're going to listen to our breathing. We're going to try and focus on calming the breath and lengthening it. So we want it to lengthen naturally. And then we're going to become aware of the breath, the inhalation, the exhalation. And we're going to become aware of this place that we refer to as the elixir field, or dantian. Just 3 fingers beneath the navel around this area here. And I want you to put your both hands on here. And this is a very comforting, nurturing, and gentle spot to hold, because you feel contained and you feel comfortable and you feel centered. Okay, then we're listening to the breathing on the inhalation and exhalation. We'll just spend a moment just paying attention to the breath. And hopefully the abdomen is rising and falling with the inhalation and exhalation. And then we're going to pay attention to the mind that is paying attention, so that we are looking for a kind of calming effect within the mental landscape, within the mental activity. And we want to feel very calm, very comfortable inside, almost as if we're about to fall asleep, where the internal narrative has started to diminish. And then we're going to try a movement, and we're going to try and combine our breathing with it. So I'm going to turn my palms up like this, and on the exhalation, I'm going to breathe in. I'm going to exhale and bring my hands out and around in a circular movement, upwards a bit. And then I'm going to inhale as if I'm pulling my hands in towards my heart. Then I'm going to descend the palms. Exhale. Inhale to the heart. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And I'm going to show you from the side. Okay. So I inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now, because the effects of Qigong are cumulative, we have to do a few of these to really start feeling the benefit. Now, as you can see, this can very easily be done seated. Inhale. Exhale. Turn the palms in, turn them up. Inhale, fold them around to aim at the heart. Exhale. Inhale. My awareness goes to the heart. Now my awareness goes to the point I described as lower dantian. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. And I'm going to change the movement. I'm going to turn the palms up like this. I'm going to lift, inhale. Bring them above my head and point the palms in towards my forehead. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now, obviously, as the breathing slows down, which it will do if you repeat these movements, the body goes into a very relaxed state and the breath will slow down, in which case the movement can be achieved as fully integrated with the breath. Now, at first you may find the breath and the movement a little bit awkward, but if you keep going at it gently, you will achieve it as the breath calms and the body and the breath start synchronizing. Exhale. Now I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to come up the center. I'm going to inhale. So I'm reversing the movement. Palms out. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. So the first priority is to establish the structure of the body and the movement, pattern of movement, then to calm the breath, integrate the movement and breath together, and then calm the mind and listen to the interior of the body. Okay? That's quite an achievement because the body is complex and we're not used to listening internally. Typically, we only pay attention to muscle stress and muscle contraction, but we're trying to keep the body very soft. This isn't about stretching, this is about moving blood and energy, what we refer to as qi. So we don't want to stretch up thinking that's going to benefit us. We're going to keep it modest, come to here, soft, descending, everything soft, fully relaxed, shoulders relaxed, chest relaxed, abdomen relaxed, neck relaxed, just above here and then out. And then we're going to go into a movement that's asymmetrical. So far they've been symmetrical. I come up and I just lift, separating one hand from the other. Roll up. Come to the heart. One down. Inhale. Exhale. The exhalation is complete as I arrive at the heart. Separate the hands. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. And I bring the hands down. And I complete the movement with a few of the beginning movements we did. In, out. Inhale. Exhale. Everything calm, body fully relaxed, perfectly balanced in space. And then I close the hands over the lower dantian again as I started. Then I bring my awareness to the body. Okay, I feel comfortable, balanced forward and backwards, side to side. I feel symmetry in my feet, so the weight is equal in both feet. I release the gluteus muscles, the abdominal muscles, the shoulder muscles. I lift the top of my head slightly as if I'm hanging like a puppet from a thread, and I just hang in space. And I pay attention to the breath. I listen to the breath, inhalation, I listen to the exhalation, and I feel that the location of my breath is all the way down in this area of lower dantian. And then I allow my mind to go into a tranquil state, almost as if falling asleep, but I'm looking inside. I'm experiencing the sensation of standing in space. The body is calm, the breath is calm, the mind is calm. And I hold it for a few minutes, but in this case, just maybe 30 seconds. Fully relaxed. And then I lower the hands down. And then I'm ready for the day. If I do this in the morning, there are many types of Qigong, hundreds actually, or types of Qigong. But this is a small example of some very simple therapeutic practices which you can do on your own, very easy to learn, very easy to follow, and the benefits are enormous, okay? So you will feel a great way to start the day and a great way to end the day, and it will help you with sleeping as well as an additional factor. Very nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was great. I really hope everybody at home enjoyed taking part in those exercises. I certainly feel a bit more relaxed and zen following those. So thank you so much for your time. Right, on now to our final speaker for this evening, Professor Anne Hemingway, who'll be talking about an EU project which helps people to stay active and independent for longer. Over to you, Anne.
Thank you. That was great. I feel much more relaxed now, having joined in with Mike. So thanks, Mike. That was super. So I'm going to talk to you this evening about a 3.5-year project that was funded through the European Commission called the SAIL project, and that stands for Staying Active and Independent for Longer. And this project was an international project carried out across 4 countries in on the coast of Northern Europe and along the coast of Southern UK. And we had various partners with us on that project. Next slide, please. And I'd like to thank, to start with, our excellent team members at BU on the SAIL project, who are myself and Holly Cross and White and Professor Adele Ladkin. we ran the feasibility study on this international research project. I would very much like to thank our fellow colleagues from the Netherlands. That's Professor Olaf Timmermans, Lottie Hendricks from the Jules Verne University of Picardy in France. That's Professor Veronique Quaglino and Professor Yannick Gunden. And then from University of East Anglia, Professor Andy Jones and Amanda Burke. So that was our team on this international project. And the project received funding, as I said, from the EU, and ran over about 6 months, so didn't really finish until last year in 2021. So I'd now like you to think about a question, and if you could put your responses up in the chat, that would be great. So that's on the next slide. Thank you. So when you think about getting older, what pops into your mind? Are there any words or phrases or issues or good things or not so good things? And it would be really great if you could share those in the chat, and I'll refer to those as I go through my presentation, and also maybe come back to them in the questions at the end. Okay, so the project itself and the point of our feasibility study, which was really to see whether this particular strategy works or not, was to focus on social innovation. Now, what is social innovation? Now, social innovation is, there's growing interest in it as a potential solution for really complex social issues. The term is still seen as a bit ambiguous. Sometimes people say social innovation, sometimes they say co-production, sometimes they say co-design. But it's really a collaborative approach rather than a competitive approach to solving problems. You work with service users or community members, and you see them as experts. So for the SAIL project, we worked with older people as the experts in what it's like to be an older person. So this is about gaining people's lived experiences, engaging people in building solutions to complex issues, and coming up with strategies which are more likely to be successful, which is what we found on our SAIL project. And the idea being that using these collaborative approaches will improve both policy and practice when it comes to dealing with complex issues. And obviously, helping older people to stay independent and active for longer is a complex issue. It's impacted on by so many different things, and very individual too, that it is a real complex social issue. We are living longer. Although I have to say, unfortunately and very sadly, COVID has reduced our life expectancy in the UK by around 5 years for the population groups within who've suffered within the pandemic. But overall, in normal times when we're not in a pandemic, our life expectancy is increasing. But the quality of life and the quality of health and well-being in that life is not good. We have a lot of years of sickness at the end of our lives. And projects like SAIL are around trying to unravel how we can, through policy and practice, changing policy and practice, how we can positively influence that to mean that we not only live longer, but we live healthier during that life and we're able to enjoy it more. The other thing that SAIL did was to bring together tourism industry in these coastal regions with the public sector, the third sector, and with older people to try and help build strategies to tackle this issue. and look at how services and resources in coastal areas can be used more widely to help active ageing and facilitate possibly year-round business opportunities as well. So you come up with some brilliant suggestions. Oh, I like Jill. That's excellent. More confident in myself and caring less what others think. Yes, I totally buy into that. And more for free time. Yes, I totally buy into that too. And I think you can find more details. It's just been kindly put into the chat on our project, and also we're in the process of publishing our findings too. So on our next slide, we're going to start thinking about what helps older people to stay active and independent for longer. And these are the things that we found were really important to older people across the 4 countries where we did our research. And we had these other academic partners, as you saw at the beginning, and they were involved in actually doing on-the-ground data collection in these 4 different countries. And we actually had 10 projects across those 4 countries, which were the Netherlands, France, the UK, and Holland and Belgium, that is. So it was these things that older people felt helped them to stay active and independent. So that was feeling safe and valued within their home and community, having some control over their life, having opportunities to learn, sharing experiences and interests with others, a sense of belonging, and having the opportunity to be active in mind and body. Our sample on the SAIL project was older people who were living well in the community, but also we worked in some care homes in France and the UK. So we also had within our sample some people with a mild dementia who were living in care homes too. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about one of the examples of our projects to give you a flavour of what we were doing with SAIL. We were working with multidisciplinary partnerships on each of those 10 projects. So we're working with local authorities, businesses, charities, local old people's groups, and any other assets that were available within that local community. And one example is what was called See and Move, which happened in Ostend in Belgium. And that project involved setting up what were called silver routes within the city to enable older people to come together to do exercise. So they did different forms of exercise together, including walking, but also exercise classes outside when the weather was good. And then eventually it was extended to inside when the weather wasn't so good. And these silver routes were created and they're now available online. And that project was mentioned in the European Parliament as an excellent example of the way that we can change the context of people's lives to help them exercise. And some of the issues that I'm going to talk to you about in a moment that stop older people exercising and socialising are interesting in relation to this project. People in Ostend were less active than in other parts of the country, and they were experiencing a lot of loneliness and social isolation, particularly in the middle of the city. And over the age of 80 years, there was literally no opportunities for people to come together and socialise. And there were few opportunities for people aged between 70 and 80. And in fact, much of the work in relation to developing these silver routes was actually about bringing existing organisations together and encouraging them to listen to older people, involve them properly throughout the planning and then the running of the initiative. And that enabled it to be successful. So the project, while we were running our research, impacted over 250 people. It had to be expanded because of the popularity. Basically, what happened was they set up rickshaws to get to get people from their homes to the start of the walks or where the exercises were if they couldn't get there themselves. And then they also set up routes which had toilets and which had seats. And this seems too simple, right? But when you need the toilet, you need it. And it is not only related to older people in reality, it's anyone who has some kind of mobility issue, for instance, or a physical health issue. This is really important. And we have a dearth of public toilets, and the commitment and investment in policies which enable us to get out and about in our local areas is missing. And it's missing. And what we found was it's missing in all the countries that were engaged in the study. So these were really successful, and they've expanded, and they're online, and they've spread to other places. So moving on, I'm going to share with you now some of the barriers which stop people getting out and exercising. So what stops older people getting active and feeling well? And if you have any ideas about what you think stops them, then please put them in the chat. And I'll tell you about ours. So we go on to the next slide. Hostile architecture. We found this in all of the places that we did the project. It's not comfortable to sit on. It's designed to stop people possibly drinking in public areas or sleeping for people who are experiencing homelessness. And in fact, what it does is it massively reduces the quality of life for everyone within that community, but particularly people with any mobility issues who need to rest, because it's not designed to rest. And you can see that lady with her blue suit on there who's actually made a suit that enables her to sit down because there's nowhere to sit. So this type of hostile architecture is common now in our cities and does limit the friendliness and accessibility for older people particularly. Thank you. Next one. Yeah, and the loos, as we mentioned, absolutely vital, quite simple, but and I see someone's mentioned encouragement and confidence. It's really hard to get up motivation and confidence to go out when you know that you're not, you may not be able to safely access the toilet, for instance, or you may not be able to sit down and rest. It's really difficult, and it really reduces people's abilities to do that, enjoy their spaces where they live. And next one. And I've seen this already. Someone's already got this right in the chat, so that's great. Lack of affordable, accessible public transport. Again, stops people getting out, stops people meeting together, and then we wonder why people are socially isolated. A really, really important issue that, again, was common across all the 4 countries too. So next slide, thank you. So how has our research helped? Well, basically what the SAIL project has done is to clarify in relation to social innovation, what makes social innovation projects successful and what makes them fail. So we found across these 10 projects across the 4 countries that social innovation was most likely to succeed when all parties trust older people as experts in being older. Now, this sounds so obvious, but so often experts in practice, any kind of practice, don't want to listen, and they don't want to hear what people have to say. So that was our key thing. People need to be willing to listen, respectful of older people's ideas and thoughts. They need to plan change in line with those ideas and thoughts. They need to build on existing groups and assets within an area, and they need to enable the sustained involvement of older people. In relation to when they fail, not listening to your target group was the key thing. Not building long-term engagement, not prioritizing social networks and relationships within your efforts to get people more active and socializing. absolutely essential to prioritize social networks, not providing what people need in the physical environment, as we've already discussed, and not developing shared values like we had on the project, which I shared with you earlier from the start, and also not working with existing partners. So we've created logic models to share with people how you can create social innovations that are more likely to be successful as a result of the project, which is to influence policy and practice internationally, essentially. And I think I've probably run out of time. It was great to interact with you, and thank you so much for being so committed to putting things in the chat. We've got some really interesting suggestions and ideas.
Thank you, Anne. That was great. And as you say, we are running a little over our proposed time. So we are going to run the question and answer session on for a little bit longer. So feel free to leave if you need to at 8:30. If you want to stay with us and listen to some of the answers to those questions, then please do. So I think we'll bring back our other speakers now, and we'll all get together and discuss some of the questions that you've been putting in the Ask a Question box and in the chat throughout the evening. But Anne, I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at some of those comments that have come in response to your questions, but it's a really interesting mix of people kind of feeling empowered, but also people feeling like they've lost the respective people or worried about being a burden on others. So does that reflect on your research and your interactions with
yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the kind of public dialogue is around older people being a burden, when that is completely wrong. They have wisdom and they have experience and they have the insights into what works for them. And I think that's where we go wrong. We don't listen to them. We don't prioritize what they think is important, you know, and that is what needs to change in order to come up with solutions which they will accept, you know, that are acceptable for them, essentially. And I would always argue that that's wrong. You know, we as we age, we gather wisdom, and that's valuable for any society.
So I think I'd like to start with a question for all of you, if that's okay. I think picking up on some of those comments in the chat and the theme of tonight's event, Living Better for Longer, I think Anne said in her presentation just now that life expectancy is increasing, but people aren't necessarily living better in the longer lives that they have. So what change from your experience, from your research, do you think needs to happen to support people to live better for longer? Maybe if we start with Samuel, if that's all right.
Yeah. Okay, so I just had a fear for a moment that my mic was on mute. I thought I was going to check it. But okay, so your question was about living healthier years in the end of our life. Yeah, well, obviously there's others in the room, so maybe I should just say Tai Chi is a panacea. It will cure all evils. But maybe I could bang the drum for sort of, you know, keeping physically active and also reducing our sedentary behavior. So what I mean by that is that we can spend a lot of our day sat down. A lot of people on this call might be sat down, or they may have chose to stand and watch some of the videos like I did. But I mean, sitting down for long periods as well is quite bad for our health. So I think even just little things, keeping up and mobile really does a tremendous amount for our health, and things like, you know, walking, and you know, if you can get to a Tai Chi class and get to one, but you know, it's those kind of things, and getting out and meeting other people and that kind of thing. It does a tremendous amount of benefit, not just to our physical health, but for our mental health, for our cognitive health. We haven't even touched on the evidence on the evidence for, you know, prevention of dementia and reducing your risk of cognitive decline. So, you know, holistic benefits. So I say that because it's very, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to get out of the chair and go for a quick walk. It's something that all of us can do. It doesn't require equipment or money or whatever, you know. Anyway, I'll stop there because the others will want to come in.
Jane or Sophia, is there anything from a nutritional perspective that you'd like to see either change or develop perhaps in our health and care system?
Absolutely. Shall I sort of jump in first, Sophia? So really, I just wanted to pick up on what Samuel was saying about activity, exercise, really important. And from a nutritional point of view, we need to sort of think about how we can maintain our our muscle strength and function, ensure that we're eating the right sorts of things, because as I said during our presentation, things do change, and as we age, we know people aren't eating enough protein in the right sorts of proteins. So it's not only quantity, it's sort of quality to maintain that muscle, so we can do the things and carry on doing the things that we want to do. But also the social aspects that Samuel highlighted as well. And when we're thinking about eating and drinking, the enjoyment of eating. And certainly when we lose our memory, lose our cognitive ability, food can be such an important way of sort of bringing people together, and understanding how we can create, the best possible eating and drinking, experience. So very sort of simple things can actually offer some really good sort of key solutions. As I'm sure, some of we've done quite a bit of work on understanding, eating and drinking for people living with dementia, and what that means to that person's, and lots of ways that people can improve that their health through better nutrition, alongside other sort of social factors as well, and lifestyle factors such as exercise, as Samuel alluded to. I don't know whether Sophia wanted to say anything else.
I just thought it would be important to add that having a community around you can be quite essential to healthy aging. And when we think back to when we used to have a village model where there were parents and grandparents and grandchildren all interacting together, and that is what our new research is seeking to bring, a multi-generational or intergenerational approach almost to healthy eating, because when you sit at the table, there's conversation, you are sharing recipes from years ago, and encouraging bonding, and that stimulates your appetite. So it's not just about the food, but also about the environment and the social engagement that comes with it.
Brilliant. And finally, anything from you, Anne, to add to that point before we move on to some of the questions that have been asked in the Ask a Question box?
Yeah, just to say that on sale we had people eating together as one of the key things, and exercising together. And in fact, the social interaction is just as important for people, and often what provides the cement for people to stick with eating more healthily and exercising for longer periods. They look forward to seeing people, and they build real relationships with people, which are really important to their health and well-being as they age.
Great, and thank you everyone for the comments and the questions that you've been sharing throughout the evening. There are quite a few nutrition-based questions, so it might be that Jane and Sophia, you can go in there afterwards and maybe respond to some of those individually. But there are some questions around protein in particular, how to make sure you're getting enough protein as a vegetarian or vegan, if you're eating plant-based foods. And Jane and Sophia, does that change as you age? Do you need more protein and other sources from vegetarian or vegan options? More difficult to get the amount of protein that you need as you age?
I think it's important to recognise that as we do age, we do need more protein, and not only the quantity of protein, but also the quality of protein. And I think across our society, where people are thinking about the amount of meat that we're consuming, we know that we've got greater numbers of people who are choosing to turn to more plant-based diets, have sort of meat-free days and those sorts of things, for a variety of reasons, whether it's for sustainability or whatever. But certainly for in our sort of later life, it's really important that people do think carefully about the amounts of protein and type, and if they choose to sort of follow a plant-based diet or a vegetarian or even a vegan diet, it's worth recognizing that not all proteins are the same. And given that we've got a whole new array of new products and different types of proteins, new dairy-free milks made from different plant-based sources, it's always important to look at the label. Don't assume that the nutritional content is the same as cow's milk. Chances are there's going to be less less protein. So that's where it comes to label reading, and obviously, you know, lots of challenges, you know, around that. But certainly, you know, as we age, it's not only protein. We need to ensure that people are eating enough calcium, enough, you know, vitamin D, enough of the sort of B group vitamins, sort of B12. You know, and of course, some of these we get from, you know, our animal sources, from dairy sources, from meat sources. And obviously, if we choose not to eat those, you know, animal, you know, sources of protein, it's important that people, you know, do think about getting them from other sources. Yeah, so it can be quite challenging as well, and I think you need to know what you're doing, and seeking obviously appropriate help and advice if you can, to ensure that you get the body's getting what it needs.
And we've also had a few questions and comments around technology and the fact that that can hinder as well as help people in older age. More isolation if you're going to the supermarket, for example, you're not talking to anybody, you're going to an automated checkout, but also technology, Samuel, you were saying actually in terms of YouTube videos could help people participate in an exercise from home that they might not be able to get out and about to do. So do any of you have any thoughts about how technology could help or hinder as we move into older age? I don't know who to open that up to. Jane, you're nodding. Do you want to come in first? And then I think Anne.
Very happy to, given some of the work we're going to be moving into, not only for the project I mentioned in the talk, but other work as well. And I think during the pandemic, I think we've all had to learn how to engage with each other. Obviously through our university, engaging with our students in different ways, but also engaging with families and friends to stay connected. And I think for some people that has offered an amazing lifeline. But I think it's, you know, it's recognizing that, you know, it isn't working well for everybody, and particularly with, you know, our older groups, and particularly those that are living in, you know, rural communities. And we're looking at parts of Dorset where we do have, you know, large, you know, rural communities don't have access to, you know, Wi-Fi. And perhaps some, you know, people who are more socially disadvantaged can't access some of the newer sort of technologies. But there's some great work ongoing to understand how we can overcome some of these barriers across, you know, across our adult lives, but particularly for older people, you know, as well. Because I think as we move forward, whether we like it or not, we're going to see more, you know, more technology within our lives, but not forgetting that, you know, we're human beings at the end of the day, and having those opportunities for human contact is, you know, equally as important. So I think we'll be, living more sort of hybrid lives, and hopefully using technology where it's needed to our advantage, rather than technology for technology's sake, if people have access to it.
Great. And Anne, did you want to come in on that point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we need to, as I mentioned in the SAIL presentation, we need to consider our shared spaces, because they need to be prioritise us being able to come together as people. And I think Jane's absolutely right. We need to use technology to advantage and keep contact with people through it and find out what's happening through it, etc. But really, our shared spaces need to be welcoming and safe for everyone. And they need to prioritize social contact now within design of buildings, within design of outdoor spaces, within town planning, within transport systems, etc. To enable everyone to participate and to prioritize that social contact.
Brilliant. Samuel or Sophia, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think I think there's really good points, and I haven't really got much to add. Just that I was thinking, you know, of course, when we talk about older people, it's such a diverse group, and so we talk about anything. You know, we talk about technology. You know, I'm sure we've all got like friends and relatives and neighbours where you got the extremes. You know, you got people who are older than me that are more technologically savvy than me. And then there's others that really don't feel confident with it yet. And I think this is where, if people want to engage with technology but aren't at the moment, there are some great support out there that Help the Aged and charities like that, where they do sort of provide some real sort of like introduction to technology. So I think that's a great resource for people who've yet to really benefit. There is support out there.
Brilliant. I'm afraid we're out of time, so I'm going to have to end the discussion there. But there are so many brilliant questions and comments in the chat that hopefully after the event, the chat will remain live. So hopefully our speakers might be able to go in and maybe answer some of those questions directly, or we'll find another way to answer some of those questions for you. Just so you know, this recording will be available after the event. If you click on the same link that you used to register and attend tonight's event, the recording will be live there. So you can always come back and watch and have a look at the chat and see what we've updated. But all that's left for me to say now is thank you very much to all of our speakers tonight, to Jane, to Sophia, to Samuel, to Anne, and to our Tai Chi instructor, Michael, as well. And thanks to all of you for joining us as well and for asking such brilliant questions and being so engaged in the chat. It's been really great to hear from you, and I really hope you've enjoyed tonight's event. We'll be emailing you after tonight's event with some details from the presentations, some links and resources so you can find out more about the research. And there'll also be a feedback survey. So this is the first event in the series and we really want to make sure it's the best it can be. So we'd really appreciate any thoughts or feedback that you could provide for us and by filling out that form. Our next event will be on Thursday, the 24th of March, around the past, present and future of the Great British Seaside. So you can join that event by clicking on the blue button at the bottom of your screen or visit the Bournemouth University website to find out more about that event and others that we have coming up. That's all from me and from all of us this evening. So thanks again for joining us. I really hope you've enjoyed it and have a wonderful evening. Thank you and goodbye.